Okay, mesenteries you should be able to identify. Parietal peritoneum, well, on the surface of the body wall, that shiny material, that's parietal peritoneum. Okay, so peritoneal membrane, entire abdominal pelvic cavity, pressed up against the body wall, parietal. All the shininess on the surface of the organs, like that shininess on the surface of the liver, that's visceral peritoneal membrane, right? Okay, the falciform ligament between the diaphragm and the liver, there's falciform ligament right there. Okay, and it's not as prominent in the cats, right? I'm probably blocking. All right, that's gonna bug me. There, now we can see better. Okay. We don't really need this part anymore. So we can look in, we can see the diaphragm, we'll reflect the diaphragm back. And there, let's see if we can get a whole bunch of these instruments dirty. There is falciform ligament. So you should be able to find that. And notice, look closely, it's smaller in the cat than it is in the human, but you can see the anterior edge of the falciform ligament is thicker. That's that ligamentum teres, also known as round ligament, that's part of the old umbilical vein. Okay. Lesser and greater omentum. Okay, this is the greater omentum forming this big apron. We'll be able to keep it reasonably well intact. The lesser one, pull the liver back and look. This one's got a lot of blood debris in here. Okay. But this membrane that you're seeing back here, okay, and sort of tented up a little bit, that's lesser omentum. It's between the stomach and the liver. There will be a lobe of the liver, it's like a little pinky finger that sort of pokes straight up. Think of it as being sort of like a tent pole. So it will create sort of a tenting effect in the lesser omentum. Won't have that in the human, but we'll have that in the cat. Okay. Greater omentum, mesentery, small intestine. Holding it in place. Okay. Look how vascular it is. Okay. That's mesentery, the small intestine. Mesentery, the large intestine, is that membrane, okay, also known as mesocolon. So look for these things, see if you can find them. The greater peritoneal cavity, basically everything you're looking at is greater peritoneal cavity. Lesser peritoneal cavity is what you can't see behind the lesser omentum. Okay, it's that little pocket that's going to be sort of posterior to the stomach and the liver, and not real big. And the omental bursa, not to be identified on site, but this greater omentum is actually a double fold. It has a fold that's extending down and then turning and folding back. So this is the descending part of the fold. The underside is the ascending part of the fold. What's in between the two is the omental bursa. Okay? But without it being fluid rich, you're not going to get it so delicate. You can try. Definitely try. So get in here, see if you can lift the two layers apart and see in between them. But my bet is you're just going to be ripping things. So all those are identifiable. Under the digestive system, parotid salivary glands, submandibular salivary glands, we skip that dissection. So you can simply cross those ones off. You're not going to have to identify those. Okay? And that includes the parotid salivary gland, salivary duct, submandibular salivary gland, the esophagus we're going to get to today, stomach. Okay. Lift the liver back, stomach, greater curvature, lesser curvature, fundus. Okay. You can manipulate things a little bit to get to the fundus. The pyloric region, you can actually feel the pyloric sphincter. Some of you might have opened up the stomach to see those interior structures. Okay. The body, all that stuff should be pretty straightforward. Rugae, probably not really distinct. For those that open up the stomach, could you see the rugae? Okay. One, they're tiny in a cat. Second, without any muscle tone, they're going to be significantly reduced in their appearance. Okay, so don't worry about being able to see those. The model shows them nicely. Esophagus we'll get to. Small intestine. Okay. Which part of the small intestine would this be? Duodenum. You know that because it's attached to the stomach. Okay. want. There we go. Somewhere along here, you know you're into jejunum, right? But you just don't know when. Eventually you get to right here where you join the large intestine. So what part of the small intestine would that be? Ileum. Okay. Is it going to be really critical to differentiate duodenum, jejunum, ileum in the cat? Not so much. Is it going to be critical to do it under the microscope? You betcha. Okay. But you can trace it out, find the large intestine. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold everything over. So we still got a little bit of sort of blood residue in here. Now, notice a lot of things back here seem to be hidden underneath the parietal part of the peritoneal membrane. But within a fold of it, you can see it's anchored by a fold, is this, in this cat, almost a string-like structure. It can be quite a bit fatter in others, like pencil size. That's uterus. And at the end of the uterus, this glandular structure is the ovary. Okay? The uterus in the cat is also found on the other side. There's uterus again. So the uterus in the cat is shaped like a big giant letter Y. Okay? The two arms of the uterus converge on the central portion that then becomes the vagina. Okay? Now what do cats do regularly that humans don't? They produce litters, meaning multiple kittens with each pregnancy. Now, the structure of the uterus allows them to be literally lined up in each arm of the uterus, and you have, well, I refer to basically as a double-barreled Pez dispenser, and the way it's structured. Okay? And it's at the top of the uterus that we find the ovaries, held in place by a broad ligament. There's no really truly recognizable fallopian tube in the cat because of the differential structure of the uterus. Okay? Okay? From the ovary, okay, you should be able to find, and they're kind of hidden here, some blood vessels. Okay? Those are the ovarian artery and vein. Okay? And they're enclosed within the broad ligament, okay, as is the nerve that's running up this way, forming what's called the suspensory ligament. Okay? So ovary and uterus held in place by a broad ligament, the ovarian artery and vein, and I want you to identify those so you don't remove them. Okay? We need to preserve all the blood vessels for the last section of the course, and the suspensory ligament that's suspending the ovary from the abdominal wall. Okay. Large intestine, pancreas. Pancreas. Forgot about the pancreas. So that's female. Terribly exciting. There's urinary bladder. Okay, just this little sac down here. This is fat. You're going to find fat in the pelvic cavity. Both male and female will have these fat pads. Okay. This lump, kidney. As long as we're here, let's go ahead and find the kidney. Okay. What we'll want to do to get the kidney exposed is we want to remove the parietal peritoneum, and it'll peel off pretty easily. Okay. There will likely be quite a bit of fat around the kidney, okay, underneath the peritoneal membrane. This is all fat, this material. And we want to try and do this without damaging the broad ligament if you have a female cat. Male cat, there's not as much to be concerned about. Okay, and without damaging the blood vessels.
What was that stringy stuff?
That was more of the connective tissue and part of the peritoneal membrane. And there's going to be smaller blood vessels that we're definitely going to be breaking.
Where's the adrenal gland?
The adrenal gland in the cat is way up here. Peel more of this stuff off. Notice what I'm doing is I'm not going in here and cutting things. I'm just grabbing and tearing. If it resists, you probably grab something you don't want to tear. If it doesn't resist a lot, you should be able to just peel it away. piece of paper toweling might not be a bad thing to have, so you can wipe stuff off. But what we want to do is we want to get better exposure of the kidney. Okay, the adrenal gland, instead of sitting right on the kidney as it does in a human, actually sits more towards midline. And since we're bilateral, if we identify everything on the left side, it's a whole lot easier to push all the abdominal contents over to the right and expose the left-hand posterior wall. It's harder the other way around, but you can go either way. Okay. What we want to do is we want to get in here and want to clean around the kidney to identify the adrenal gland, identify, here I'm going to get underneath that, the renal vein. If you get under them, you can actually get them to start popping out a little bit better. Identify the renal artery. There's the renal artery, renal vein. This is gonadal coming down this way. We want to be careful to leave those intact. And then we want to find, and this is going to be a little bit